Welcome to the Get Offset podcast. My name is Emily.
My name is Andrew.
I'm Louise.
And I'm Philippe Herndon.
And I am very excited to say that welcome our guest to this week's episode. We're going to talk a little bit about COVID-19's business impact on our favorite builders in the industry. If you'll remember last week, we talked about with Steve Selvage. What did we talk about, Emily?
We talked about the impact of COVID-19 is having on touring artists and, well, not even touring. Like Steve does live local shows for his income. So we talked a little bit about that. Steve, you might know from the Hold Steady and other things. Big Ass
That was
Truck,
a surreal
perhaps.
episode because both you and Steve got like gig cancellation notices while we were recording actively. It was like in real time. Like, oh, and that's another couple $100 I'm not making. Wow.
I had two canceled in 1 hour.
Gosh.
So that was a very sobering episode. We didn't really plan on doing a full series on this, but I don't think any of us planned on what's been going on. So we're just kind of taking this a week at a time and talking with different aspects of the industry and what this really means for everybody, kind of try to break it down. But before we get too heavy,
can we fully introduce our guest though? Because
that's probably reasonable.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a terrible. I feel so bad.
Yeah. Well, Louise is a veteran to the show at this point. This is her second time being on. She is a co-owner and the person who gets it done at Dwarfcraft Devices.
That's me.
That's you. And Philippe is the mastermind behind Caroline Corporation. Is that it?
It is. It's officially still Caroline Guitar Company, but if we keep selling stuff as Caroline Corporation, I may have to rebrand the whole thing.
Tomorrow's great ideas. Today is a mug I love a lot.
We've had a lot of fun with that, and thank you. And I apologize. I'm compelled to say my first and last name whenever we do introductions, so I botched the introduction with everyone doing the first name. Oh well.
Yeah. Well, you were the last one to go, so it's not like you didn't hear everyone else was doing it.
I know, seriously.
The name's Herndon, Philippe Herndon.
Mine, Emily Harris.
Louise Woletz-Hinz, coming in with the hyphenated there.
Yeah.
And Andrew Renard.
Nice.
Foxy.
Nice. Yep.
All right. Sorry to interrupt you, Andrew.
No, you're totally all right. That's a bad on me. I'm definitely like kind of still sitting in that cloud of like everything's a dream right now. Like what's going on? So doing my best to stay with it. So bear with me. But before we get too heavy on everything, why don't we let's talk about what's new. Let's keep this light. Let's just have some really good fun talking about what's been going on outside of the craziness of this virus, and let's just enjoy the next few minutes before we start digging into the topic. How's that sound?
Okay.
Good stuff.
Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll go first. I've been cooking more, and the other night I made cacio e pepe from scratch, and it was delightful.
That sounds awesome. What is cacio de pepe?
Cacio e pepe literally means pepper and cheese.
Oh, okay.
Cheese and pepper. So it was just like some spaghetti noodles and then a little butter, cracked black pepper, Parmesan cheese, and pecorino. And then you stir it all up together after you make the pasta, and it's really, really tasty.
All right, so Emily made mac and cheese. Who else?
Listen, I did. And I'll do it again. I have the hamburger helper in the pantry.
Now that my kids are off school, I have like an endless supply of noodles and mac and cheese. I bought like the industrial size boxes. So
Yes.
I'm right there with you.
Nice.
Wait, you guys aren't eating toilet paper?
I'm not yet. I didn't stock up though, so we probably have to ration that more than the noodles at this point.
We're down to about 3 or 4 rolls, but I have an agreement with a friend of mine who picked up a 30 roll from Costco. that I'm to bring them a 6-pack of beer this afternoon, and I get 6 rolls.
Nice.
So
Sounds like a great trade.
I think
that's
a
actually
great
pretty
trade.
reasonable.
I think I'm calling it my strategic reserve. So it's worked out pretty well. But it's my children are 5 and 3, so I've been able to convince them to use baby wipes, and that is, we still have a stockpile of baby wipes from before the 3-year-old started potty training, and that's been pretty splendid. Can't lie.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. They may become adult wipes pretty soon too. Not gonna lie.
I think my husband's glad I bought that bidet for Christmas the other year.
Oh my God. If I could have. So full disclosure, we thought about buying one, but it was right at the time that the toddler was fascinated with water fountains, and I was like, let's pass.
No.
That is going to end poorly.
Let's hold off for a little while.
I think my children would have way too much fun with that. They're teenagers and they're all naughty, so I think we'll skip that one. They would tease each other to no end.
Amazing.
Almost as bad as toddlers at this point.
So, Louise, do you have any teenage boys?
I do. We have one 14, almost 15-year-old.
I need to send you this Amazon link, this review of bulk purchases of Kleenex by a mother of a teenage boy.
No.
It's so amazing. She's like,
I don't pick up his laundry in his room anymore. That's for damn sure.
She basically is like, I used to try to walk loudly and announce that I was heading in a direction. It's just war zone now. She's just like, I'm not. She's like, I'm not even. She's like, you lecture me all you want about trying to teach the kids morals. We're in a triage situation now.
Oh my God.
Good.
Luckily, we haven't reached that.
Why did you leave a plate in your? Oh, sorry, that's a shirt.
Oh my God.
And that's why I don't pick up his laundry anymore.
Yeah. I had a friend who her dad had bought them all like those little electric back massager things at Bed Bath & Beyond or whatever. And
I mean, I have one of those too, but I don't lie about what it's for.
And one day he's like, God, y'all go through batteries for this like it's water. I'm like, you just bought a teenage girl a vibrator. Like, come on.
You got to get the ones that plug in or recharge. That's just common sense.
The rechargeable ones for sure. Plugging in seems so 90s.
So, Philippe, what's new with you? Philippe, he had a heart attack. He's done. He's down for the count. Well, while Philippe is being resuscitated, I'll go ahead and share what's new with me. For starters, I am doing my best to follow the CDC guidelines on jokes with the whole quarantine. You're supposed to actually limit the jokes you tell to a specific category.
Whoa, that's weird.
We're only allowed to tell inside jokes now.
Oh.
That was better than your last week joke, though.
I do what I can.
Good. That's
no, but I really feel bad for the rest of my family because they usually only get doses of my bad puns, and like just when I'm home from work and like my mom lives with us, but she usually, until she got laid off, she's been working evening shifts and I work morning shifts, so like I won't see her for like 3 or 4 days of the week in a given week, and I haven't slowed down the number of my puns. They're just usually spread out to all of my coworkers in the office, and now my family's getting the full brunt. So I don't know how they're dealing with it. They've kind of stopped groaning at this point and just staring at me blankly. I feel like I'm doing something wrong. Either that, my jokes are just getting really bad and I'm running out of material. But on a gear-related note, I got one of the best new gear days I've had in a very long time yesterday.
Oh, finally.
I am months behind when I should have done this, and my Strymon Iridium showed up yesterday, and I forgot what it was like to have good amp tone.
Nice.
That's pretty excellent.
So
I really like mine.
Rather late last night, just absolutely immersed, just threw in the headphones and just completely lost myself. Not only was it like a very needed cathartic moment for me after the week I've had, but it just sounds so good. I'm kind of like almost mad. I kind of expected it to be like, okay, this is pretty good, but I'd still rather like plug into the amp I have and just move some air in. That's just not the case. It just sounds better than my amp. It's not like I have the greatest amp ever, but it's responsive. It's so good that the Fender Deluxe on there is just, it's one of my favorite amps, and like just that clean classic Fender sound.
Yeah.
And it just nails it. So I'm pretty happy with it.
I mean, I use it for most of our demos.
Well, I can see why.
I mean, if they've got the full force of that processing chip going just to dedicate it, get those 3 amps and those cabinets right, they're going to get it pretty right.
Yeah.
Do you know what chipset they use, Philippe?
I believe it's a Shark. And it's a Shark with a lot of pins. And
yeah.
I mean, it's,
those are serious business.
Yeah, it's some coin, and it's impressive what they're doing. And so I've been impressed with what I've heard from the Iridium too.
Nice.
I've never played one, so I'm out of the loop at this point.
I haven't played one. I just heard it, but from what y'all are saying, I'm impressed.
Mm-hmm.
I had only listened to Emily's demos with it because I don't get to see Emily very frequently at all.
Less now.
Especially less now. And so I still haven't had a chance to get my hands on it until yesterday. And I don't know. I wasn't expecting to be this pleased with it for sure. So I've been working on, I'm finally in the name of like picking up projects that I really should have done like a while ago. About a year ago, I picked up a cutting board from IKEA for like $15, like a really solid like butcher block board. And I've been working or was planning on turning that into a board build at some point to be like, hey, you guys all do your like slatted angled boards from IKEA, but what about doing just a flat board? And never got around to doing it. And now I'm finally actually starting to work on it. And I think I'm down to just trying to track down a stereo reverb within my limited budget range to finish off the build.
The Avalanche run isn't enough plate reverb for you?
It's a lot, but it's also my favorite delay as well. And I don't know if I should do one of two things. If I should just throw the expression on there and just blend in the reverb as needed, because I've got a mini expression pedal, or if I should just get a dedicated reverb pedal. I'm not sure yet.
It'd be about the same amount of space. Right.
And a dedicated reverb pedal could do a little bit better. I know I've got enough room for like a Boss RV5 or an RV6. I don't know if I've got room for a Blue Sky, and I certainly don't have room in my budget for a Blue Sky. So open to ideas, just trying to figure it. But I mean, I just plugged in most of that rig that I've got planned out onto my workbench last night to play with the Iridium, and it just sounds.
Yeah.
The Iridium took everything so well, and I was particularly upset. I used to have a what was it? The Nunaber Iconoclast, which is really great as a cab sim, but I couldn't get a preamp to work with it well enough for it to sound amp-like. It just sounded like a cab sim, and this is just a completely different ballgame. So I'll stop waxing and waning on how much I love this, but that's pretty much the highlight of my week in a nutshell.
Yeah, nice.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I guess I didn't talk about music things, but Philippe, what's new with you? So added an accent aigu to the end of your name.
No, it's you are far from the first. You're far from the first. I think I've this week in sudden homeschooling because they canceled the schools here, and suddenly adapting to working from home in our current environment. I think I totaled my amount of hours of work, and I think I managed to get 5 hours of work done in a week, a grand total of 5. And this includes probably about an hour of me trying to reset my MailChimp password to try to send out an email. And then there's just some other adventures. So I do have to report that my offensive line pass blocking technique to prevent our children from interrupting my wife's telework has gotten really good. I think I rank somewhere between Seattle Seahawks legend Walter Jones and Joe Biden's wife right now, and my ability to stiff arm people from getting to getting to my wife. I've been cooking a lot. I did a little Instagram post of middle class fancy. I taunt my former bandmates by posting little things on Instagram that look fancy so that they send me messages in private texts with the acronym MBFN, which is must be effing nice. Because we all joke about how jealous we are of each other's lives. And I'm big right now on making pimento cheese and turkey sausage sandwiches.
Oh, I miss pimento cheese. Oh my God.
It's good stuff.
They don't have good pimento cheese. When I was in Texas, I had this. We went to a gas station. I bought a pimento cheese sandwich at the gas station. It was so good.
Oh, you mix a little bit in with your scrambled eggs. You fold that up into a sandwich, put turkey sausage, split it, and then it's been good stuff. And I've been on absolute fire with whatever espresso drinks I make. I'm going to give a shout out. I got beans from this place in Richmond called Blanchard's Coffee that's delivered to me, and they're great. They make your house stink. You make your house stink so good. It's like you grind those, and it's like all of a sudden your kitchen and your dining room smell like I'm in a really nice cafe all of a sudden. Excited this week. I'll spoiler it a little bit, but end of this week, I'm appearing on the JHS show. I flew out to Kansas City and hung out with Josh Scott and recorded something, and it was pretty interesting. I won't spoil too much about it, but it was a fun appearance, and we may or may not have a pedal coming out on Friday.
Oh.
So it's pretty exciting. We're pleased. So another 3 knobs.
You didn't have my attention before, you do now.
Another 3 knobs in the truth device. This one basically sounds like if you mic'd the world's most expensive amp and put it into a $500,000 SSL preamp mixer, but the faders were filled with cocaine from the 1970s.
You have my attention.
It's all just total. Wait, are those cats? Are cats by my window? It's all just.
Amazing.
That description.
Thank you for queuing that up.
Your description of that particular unit definitely reminds me that I need to continue my Harry Potter marathon. Watching with my mom for the first time because she's never seen. She just finished reading the books and now she's watching it. And your pedal reminded me that I don't think she knows that the actor for Dumbledore changes between a couple of the movies.
Well, yes, Andrew, he dies. The actor, the first actor. But hey, if you need any demos of that new pedal, I'm very bored. I'm very bored.
We will be in touch. Here's my theory about Dumbledore. If the actor changes, could Dumbledore be? Have you guys ever heard of the identity theory of James Bond?
No.
I'm going to take a 20-second aside to this because I think this is an interesting theory. So the theory we've been watching James Bond movies for 50 years, and there's like Sean Connery plays James Bond, then Roger Moore plays James Bond, Daniel Craig plays James Bond, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, right? And the assumption of the audience is that all 5 of these men are playing the same man, right? And they're doing reboots, right? So Daniel Craig is rebooting Pierce Brosnan's, and we're going back in time, sort of to say, right? Well, the identity theory, I think, is a really fascinating, different take on it, because if you notice, the actor who plays M, who's like the boss of MI6, is consistently the same until about the 80s, right? And then it becomes Judi Dench in the 90s through early 2000s, then it's Ralph Fiennes now. The actors who play Q, the tech guy, stay the same. The identity theory is that James Bond is not a person. James Bond is a name assigned to this agent who becomes this person.
I like that.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
Oh, I'm totally on board with that.
So that Sean Connery ages out, dies, something happens, and there's a new person who has become James Bond.
Is that kind of how Doctor Who works?
A little bit, but it's still the Doctor just taking different bodies. It's still the same person. Whereas this is that this person becomes assigned to James Bond. So now,
so it's more like the Santa Claus.
Yeah, like the Santa Claus, and it makes possible the idea when people say, "Well, James Bond can't be a black man or James Bond can't be a woman." It says, no, that's not true, because you all used to say James Bond couldn't be a blonde man, and here's Daniel Craig, right? And Daniel Craig, they keep talking about how young he is, and you're like, well, he's young, but Judi Dench is his M, and she has just been M for 5 Pierce Brosnan movies. How can James Bond be young? It's because this James Bond is young.
Mm-hmm.
And the previous ones were young at some point, and now. Because now Daniel Craig is about to be in, whenever they release it, Bond 25. He's now going to be the second oldest James Bond other than Roger Moore in A View to a Kill.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing.
Yeah. So the next James Bond, whoever it is a person who is James Bond. It's like in that world, it operates the same way as it operates for us as moviegoers, that somebody has become James Bond. You know,
I
really wanted it to be Gillian Anderson. I really wanted her to be a James Bond.
Who? I missed that.
Scully from X-Files.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
She is a girl crush for sure.
Absolutely.
Have you seen Sex Education?
No, it's on my list.
Move it up your list. It's hilarious and awkward and ridiculous. And she is so foxy in that show.
Nice.
Holy heck.
When is she not foxy?
Never. But she's especially foxy in that show.
Have you seen The Fall on Netflix with her, Jamie Dornan?
I don't want to.
It's really good, but it's like it's uncomfortable, but it's really good. Yeah. And she's super foxy in it as well. It's ridiculous.
Nice.
I want to believe that she could be the next James Bond. I think she totally
she'd
could
be so good.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm going to think about that for the rest of the day. Thanks, Daniel Craig in a suit and her.
Just don't borrow a back massager, okay?
No need to borrow anything.
Borrow? Yikes! That ain't right.
I don't even know how I brought up the James Bond identity thing because I was going to talk about something else. I totally forgot what it was I was going to talk about, so we can move on. Dumbledore. That's what it reminded me of. Never. Thank you.
Full circle. We got it. So all I've been doing since the plague hit is reading and building some pedals. We've got a release coming out with the band Boris, Japanese metal.
Yeah.
Long-time favorites of us. That's actually dropping on Tuesday. They will be up in our store. Yes. So look for that. I think we've got 40 of them only. We did a real small run. Beautiful, with the artwork from their Love and Evil album that came out a couple months ago. We meant to get to it earlier in the year, but life happened. So it's taken a little longer. So I've just been soldering Eau Claire Thunder petals like a madwoman for the last week or so, which is really a nice, it's a nice distraction because you just turn on some TV or some music and kind of zone out. And I've built so many of those things in the last 13 years that I can kind of do it without thinking.
Nice.
So soldering is a really nice relief. And then just taking care of kids and grocery shopping, and that's about it. Not much to report over here. No interesting James Bond theories happening in my house.
I was really surprised. I put up in the poll and the Get Offset Facebook group, like, what should I live stream be doing? And people wanted to see me solder a lighthouse kit. I'm like, what? All right. Maybe I'll do that this weekend.
Have you built pedals before, Emily?
I've done 2 BYOC kits, and one worked and one did not.
How are the instructions on those?
The instructions were fine. What was not so fun was one of the pedals was a chorus pedal, just getting all of the resistors in a bag, not
labeled or anything.
So I was like, okay, let me pull out the app. Is this red or is that orange that I'm looking at?
Oh, that's a pain.
That's gross.
We did kits for a little while, and we just took masking tape or painter's tape and like taped off a strip of resistors for people. Because I imagined myself trying to go through and like figure it out, and I got mad even thinking about it. So
yeah, it was not my favorite moment.
No, that's harsh.
Yeah, and 4 hours later, it didn't work.
Oh, I mean, we've all been there. That's like the worst feeling.
I think I fried an IC chip.
Ooh. I've had them blow up on me before, where like literally like smoke, like the smoke pops up. Like
we call it letting the smoke out. It's happened lots of times.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, I didn't think it would do that.
Any machine can be a smoke machine if you believe.
That's true.
That's true. So Louise, what I was going to say is one thing I saw that was like a wake up call when I was visiting Josh at JHS was, so I have this problem where I'll breadboard for a new design, and then I'll take the breadboard apart like in this kind of showy, like I'm done here, like I'm throwing the mic on the ground, whatever. I just pull all the resistors and caps out of the breadboard, and there's all over my desk, right?
Yeah.
And then I have to breadboard again. I have all these resistors. I'm like, I end up spending like an hour like measuring resistors. I'm like, oh, this was a 10K. Oh, this is a 1K. Like, I'm like sitting there just like, I forget what the codes are. And I'm like, okay, I have to organize this stuff and clean it up and put it back. Right?
Oh, they're pennies, man. I chuck them.
Well, so my coworker Ben is like, what we need to do is we need to buy you new breadboards, and we can keep all the old breadboards. So if we have to adjust something in a circuit, we can just pull your old breadboard down. And if we want to do a mod or an adjustment, you just pull the breadboard on that you were doing, and you just pull, and you can change values when you need to, right? And I just think like, oh, this is so unnecessary. I'm like, I need my big cathartic, like I'm going to throw my breadboard and disassemble everything moment. And then I'm visiting Josh, and I look, and there's a shelf just full of these like boxes that look almost like LP boxes or something. I'm like, what are these? And Josh is like, oh, those are all the old breadboards. I'm like, oh.
So
I'm
that's not such a weird idea.
And I'm messaging Ben like, hey, I have a photo to show you. And I sent him a photo, and it looks like a bunch of like little pizza boxes,
Yeah.
just like it looks like takeout personal pizzas from like someplace like Mod Pizza. And he's like, what are those? I'm like, those are all of the old breadboards. And he's like, oh. I'm like, yeah. Okay, I guess we need to order more breadboards.
You were correct.
Nice.
But
Talk about a flex. Holy cow.
yeah.
Oh, JHS must have 1,000 of them. They have a lot of gosh darn pedals.
Yeah, there's
They do.
There's a lot of breadboards, and I got to meet with Josh's in-house engineer who just has all that stuff, and he like it was funny, his take on a lot of this stuff. He was like, yeah, we have to keep all this stuff. And he was showing me like their color box one, which just looked like, because me and Josh spent a lot of time on this thing, and I don't ever want to look at it again. And it's just like, just transformers all over the place, and because there's like different transformers they tried and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, goodness, like they'd put in some work. They'd definitely put in some work. But yeah, just the resistor code thing, I can't imagine, Emily, just what a nightmare that would have been,
Well, and if you get anything wrong, that's what, it could just be, that's what could have busted the pedal. If you have a couple of resistors in the wrong spot, that's enough to brick it.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I bought, I have a second, so I like that PCB is done. It's dead. I tried to like desolder. It didn't work out. So I have another one of just the board because I spent so much time on the enclosure.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll try it again. But I have some PCBs from Spruce Effects. Brian Bicknell sent me something that he had owed me, and then he also filled it up with some also sent me some what he called trash. So there's some PCBs in there for like the saltwater fuzz and the mount
cool.
hood. I'm like, well, maybe I can figure this out. I have a bunch of resistors somewhere, but I just need to know what else to buy.
Yeah, get that bill of materials.
Yep.
Yeah. What else am I gonna do?
Soldering is pretty much all I've done. It's just such a good like Zen activity.
Yeah, just very much forces you to be in that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Like reading.
Yeah. My choice of books in this of all end times is pretty trashy at the moment, but
good.
I'm embracing the just garbage romance novels and like fluff reading because it's much better than reading a really serious book that's going to make me, worry or cry or get upset or whatever.
Yeah, you don't want to read The Grapes of Wrath right now.
No, not at all. I'm not going to go pick up Beloved or some other book that'll tear my heart out. No. Only escapism at the moment.
Good vibes only.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I'm running the opposite direction. I started reading Thomas Piketty's Capital, and
ouch,
which is like it serves two purposes. One is that it's heavy enough to murder a small animal should we need food, and the other thing is I feel like it's allowing me to really deep dive on our dystopian present, and I think. If I ever have to take a break from pedals, we're fine for stuff right now. But if I have to take a break, I might just start making guillotines in my work shed.
Yeah, I feel like we need them.
Right, yeah, now, I mean, if only we could declare this disease was a burning very old church, and then, the billionaires would come in and rescue it.
Yeah.
For
they are
marketing
certainly
purposes.
Not rescuing.
No,
they're not rescuing now.
Yeah, I mean,
no.
At least
meanwhile, yesterday musicians are trading the same $15 around on Bandcamp.
No kidding.
That's literally what happened.
Did you see that Bandcamp announced that after I think it was like 18 hours yesterday, they had cleared $3 million in one day for
That's a lot of processing fees.
Yeah. Well, no, they waived their processing fees yesterday.
Oh, but the credit card processing fee's still there, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So
credit card
some musicians made some coin yesterday, so thanks to everyone who bought something off of Bandcamp. It is hugely appreciated.
Yeah.
Likewise, I had 3 friends buy my record, and then I bought 3 friends' records with that money.
Awesome.
I'll buy your record if you buy mine.
I didn't need the money.
I
put that for people who are full timers.
I think if there's a stimulus check coming, I'm just going to set it aside for trying to keep my local restaurants and local musicians and local screen printers in business.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I mean,
the guy we work with, we share a shop with a gear store in our town. And he had almost all of his summer gigs canceled, and he plays, he's a bass player. So he plays a lot of jazz, weddings and outdoor events all summer. And like, that's his side hustle, which makes up not an insignificant portion of his income. And he's toast, plus no one is going out. So the gear store is slow. So really, I mean, everybody should be out there buying gift certificates and try to keep everybody afloat while this is happening, because the fallout's going to be ugly.
Yeah. So
before we get too deep into the heavy fallout, why don't we talk sponsor for the episode, and then let's go ahead and deep dive on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Speaking of local artisans, this week's episode is sponsored by Sinusoid Pro Audio Couture. So I know that I think we all have a ton of Sinusoid cables. They are fantastic. They're robust. They sound great. So when I film my demos, I go direct into a Tascam, which then I can do a line out to direct to the camera so that it's all already in sync. Saves me a ton of editing time. The aux cable I had been using just crapped out on me. So I talked to our friend Albie at Sinusoid, and I'm getting one of their Sinusoid aux cables. So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be quite the upgrade. I'm going to have TechFlex on it, which is really neat. I love the TechFlex stuff. I sometimes am afraid of slipping on it on stage if I step on it, but I really like being able to visually tell which cables are mine when I look at a stage.
It also prevents rabbits from eating it.
Or cats.
Cats.
We used to have for yourself. My cats will eat anything that's plastic. Oh, this sounds fun. That means it does taste fun. I don't know.
One of our cats is like that too. She's a monster.
Is that the Marceline?
Yes. Marceline is a monster. She has eaten through more headphones and phone charging cables and
back massager cables.
No, that stays hidden. And gosh, what else? She's a monster.
And that's why you always go with the rechargeable back massagers.
No comment.
My gosh.
So my cat Percy has a thing is he will eat cables like nobody's business, but only white cables. I don't know why.
Because your cat's racist.
Fight the power.
Whitey's got to pay. I don't know. I've got this. I've got a white, like one of those white like coily cables for guitar, and I can't bring it out at home ever. I'm so scared of like it's gonna get chewed up, or I'm just gonna like step out to take a piss real quick, come back, and be like, Percy, no.
Those things are expensive, man.
Yeah, those are.
Oh my gosh.
Damn.
They are expensive, and I'm kind of disappointed. The one I've got is actually a monster, and I've been kind of disappointed because I've had to resolder the connection several times. It's just not a high quality cable, and yeah.
That's the case with most of them. saying before the episode started, Sinusoid is the one that they've lasted on our testing bench, which gets plugged and unplugged 1,000 times. So way more wear and tear than most people use. And they have stood up to a lot. They're just excellent.
Yeah.
I have the white coily cord of the Holy Grail, which is the Sinusoid slate coil.
Ooh.
Fancy.
So slate white coil from Sinusoid.
I'm kicking myself for not buying one of those when they were less expensive.
That thing is girthy, too. It is just girthy. It is so substantial. I mean, it just is like... I miss playing live with the thing because the thing would just drop on the floor and you could just feel it against your leg. Yeah.
There
I
are
can step on this
so
thing.
many jokes that I am not saying right now. Jesus.
Go for it.
I'm putting it right there. That cable is just dangling. Just so much dangle.
Oh.
It was so much,
thick.
so thick, engorged. Medically engorged.
You guys are making me blush. Come on.
I tell you, that cable is so heavy, I had to lie around in a back massaging chair for a while after the show.
Nice.
And the upside to the cable is you don't need to recharge it.
No, not rechargeable.
Indeed not.
And so long as I keep it away from Andrew's cat, it's safe. So.
Oh, and there's another joke right there. Man, you guys are just lining them up.
Line them up, knock them down.
Too easy.
Yeah.
Too
We've
easy.
been away from people for too long.
Oh, that's great.
I guess so.
Social
I get if I feel like I get another week of social distancing, I'm just gonna wake up in the middle of the night and go, Wilson, and my wife's like, do I look like a volleyball?
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's chat on the topic. I have no complaints whatsoever that we ended up going a little longer on just chatting. It feels really good, and
feels good.
I needed that. So, but why don't we let's talk doom and gloom with a smile on our face. How's business?
Who goes first?
Well, I mean, go ahead.
So I think it's understood that coronavirus is affecting everybody a lot right now. I think a lot of people are they're not working as much as they used to. Gigs are canceled. But I was wondering what kind of things that people might not be thinking about might be impacting how you all do business as usual. Things like is it affecting manufacturing of parts, your workforce, and how you get things done. So maybe Louise could start with that.
Well, we're still going to work. Our shop is kind of closed up, and there's just a couple of us, so it's that has not been affected much yet. We have not had parts supply issues, though there is timing issues with getting things delivered. There are some delays there. And I have a feeling it's going to hit the fan starting, next week as places are, Chicago is shelter in place, LA is. So some of the places that we order our parts from are no longer going to be able to get them to us at all. So I'm definitely, that's on my mind, though it hasn't impacted us yet. I've been trying to stock up on things before we need them. So I'm trying to be proactive with that. The biggest thing is that because Chicago Music Exchange is now shelter in place, their warehouse is closed. So there's a hold on all shipments to them, and they're a huge retailer. We have some other places that are putting hold on all invoices as they are also shelter in place. Some of our Los Angeles, California area places have known this is coming for a week or so. So they, that's going to impact things for a long time when you have dealers start to say, we're holding all invoices and, that gets a little bit scary. Nothing terrible yet, but it doesn't leave me feeling particularly uplifted. And, so we're just kind of wait and see. And I am, I'm sure it's going to get worse before it gets better when your entire audience is having all their gigs canceled and all of their income stopped. I don't think that's, I think that fallout's going to last a really long time. So I'm definitely nervous. It's not horrible yet, but it's definitely on my mind, especially as we drop a new pedal. I don't really know what to expect. Not that it's a new pedal, but we have a small release, and it's the first time I've been a little bit nervous for a long time. So that's kind of a new feeling. We've been in this, for over a decade. And so first time I go, well, shit, I'm not sure this is going to go as well as I want it to, just simply because I don't know what they have for cash reserves. I don't know how everybody's feeling yet.
Yeah, I think I could echo everything that you're saying, Louise. We're still at work. We have people coming in. We're lucky to have enough square footage and few enough people that people can almost be in their own room, each kind of working and making stuff, and we're still making things, which feels good. We were lucky enough to have kept cash reserves, so I have a very healthy amount of runway. I could pay people to build pedals for a while, even if we didn't sell a single pedal, but I wouldn't want to. That would be pretty rough. The parts delays thing, I want to echo to what you were saying. This is one of the things I found myself telling relatives and in-laws who were dismissive of what was happening. I was telling them in February that this was serious because stuff that used to take me 4 or 5 days to get from Southeast Asia, I only got last week. And we're talking things that was ordered in late January and early February. And it just, I think there's a PCB manufacturer for us that had their website actually down for 2 weeks. And I was like, well, what happened to my money? We just ordered a bunch of boards and things, and stuff was just taking incredibly long. And then we had special releases for retailers that depended on a custom PCB. And I went, well, that was supposed to be filled in early February, and we just now got the boards in March. And then that's, the world is shutting down. And I'm like, well, let's hope that they'll still be interested in this stuff when it comes back out. And those parts delays were a big indicator of how serious this was. I mean, we've worked with a lot of the same people where they love just-in-time delivery and turning stuff in a hurry. And when that stuff that takes 5 days took 7 weeks, I remember saying, this is incredibly serious, and I would get kind of glib responses. And I'm like, no, these people do not take 7 weeks to deliver things. And, I'm anxious too. I mean, our new pedal that I've talked about coming Friday is a small release too. I mean, it's just a limited run. And I'm curious because I've seen people pay for our pedals with like dirty money that they've wadded up in their jeans from working double shifts as waiters and, bartenders. And, that work is gone for them the same way a lot of their gigging work is gone. So I'm very curious as to see how people recover and how people handle on this stuff. So I think we're okay for now, but I worry about this on a big macroeconomic sense, industry-wide, for people like Emily, for people like a lot of my customers who really do the artist's life, where they are, they do service industry shifts and then they gig when they can, and they rotate back and forth between these things in the gig economy.
Oh, the gig economy. It doesn't just mean you play a gig. It can mean everything from freelance work, like freelance writing is, part of how I had my income. And right now it's going all right. I've actually picked up a few more articles than I normally have, but I'm like, how long is that going to last? How long are people going to be able to, you know, pay writers to write things? How are my
it's like
clients going to do this?
Philippe was saying, he's got a runway, and so do we. But how? I mean, it's not forever.
No. I mean,
and that's what we don't know. We don't know how long this is going to last. We don't know whether we're going to there's no leadership around it. So it feels really difficult to make any kind of long-term decisions, which is really not like us. Typically I'm thinking out months in advance and trying to plan what we're going to do. And I don't feel like I can do that right now. I just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, my band has been sitting on a record and we just finally got someone who wants to release it. And we're like, we had a call yesterday. I'm like, okay, so should we just proceed with our original intended? So we're like, yeah, we'll just go ahead and get the physical copies, but we don't know when we're going to be able to tour around this release to sell these copies of this record that we're ordering right now.
Right.
We don't know if it's going to take longer or what. Like if we go, I know Tennessee doesn't have a shelter in place. So if we go with URP or Memphis Pressing, I know it's usually like a 8 to 10 week turnaround. Is that still reasonable, or is is production going to just stop? Because I feel like shelter in place is probably, inevitable.
Mm-hmm. For a lot of large cities, I would say, yeah, that's what I would expect to happen.
I'm honestly, I'm shocked that Seattle hasn't done it yet.
I think Jay Inslee doesn't want to force that. I think he's trying.
Yeah, he's been pretty consistent about his message, which has been actually pretty nice to have in government leadership. In terms of, he's been saying this entire time, I don't want to put everybody on shelter-in-place lockdown, but I will if I have to. So behave.
Yeah.
And so as of yesterday, they just shut down all the public parks. I'm right around the corner from a big soccer and baseball field. That's the only decent chunk of grass I can take my kid out to go run around. And now that's shut down because
they said that the big green spaces, as long as you maintain 6 feet, you can still go to them.
They shut down all the public parks here in Columbia, and it's really infuriating because I was trying to keep the kids away from my wife doing important telework, and I was kicking myself because I went, oh my gosh, every park is shut down. The Riverwalk is shut down. The rivers are shut down. Where do I go? And then I was having a virtual happy hour with my old friends. And one of them had this brilliant idea, and we were all just teeming with jealousy about this. So I'll share it with you, and hopefully it doesn't cause a run on these. But his wife took their kids. He's in Richmond, Virginia, and his wife took his kids to all the different universities around there, which are basically abandoned right now. And they have lots of green space. Yeah. And so they were just running around university. And she said, literally at one university, I think they were at University of Richmond, they only saw one person, and it was a groundskeeper. And literally they walked the entire university. So I thought that was an interesting workaround she had, and I may try that soon because we're close enough to University of South Carolina and Columbia International University and some others. I could just just run in this quad for a second, run around in the quad.
Kidding. We have snow on the ground still here, a lot of it. Wow. It was only 35 yesterday, so Wisconsin spring is slow. So, I mean, my kids are outside a little bit, but it's still chilly, and which is really hard. My sister's kids are young. Her youngest is just turned 5, and they're going crazy. Those boys are so naughty right now. There's just no, and they have, I have a huge fenced in yard. Lots of my friends do. We have space here, which is lovely, but it's still pretty crappy outside.
Oh, that's tough. I can't imagine.
Yeah. It's not been super fun.
My parents live in South Carolina, and they closed all the beaches.
All the beaches too? Jeez.
Well, people had been
I-
going there on their spring break. They're like, oh, well, I can stay and fly and for dirt cheap right now. So then you have all the
spring
spring
breakers.
breakers.
Oh my god, those spring breakers! I wanted to nuke them from orbit.
Yeah.
People are so dumb.
I wanted Battlestar Galactica to show up. I wanted Admiral Adama to just warp in and send a nuke from orbit and warp out. You know?
Did you see the video of a bunch of spring breakers getting interviewed on the news? They all looked sick.
Yes.
None of those people looked well.
Yeah.
See, and the frustrating thing is, like, normally I would just say, ha 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 ha, Darwinism. You make dumb decisions. But in this case, it's not even like they're probably not going to die. They're just going to overwhelm the hospitals in that area, and old people are going to die. I mean,
and they're going to take it home. They're going to all catch it there, and they're going to take it home to the people that they love.
Yeah.
Right, but then they're not good. So other people are going to end up probably facing death because these dumbasses are going out playing on the beach, but they're going to be fine. So I'm like, Darwin. Why not
this isn't
time?
like a hangover. This isn't a you get what you deserve, you dumbass on spring break. This is please stop bringing this to the grocery stores and the poor people who have to stay and staff them. And
can we just quarantine them to the beach since that's what they really want? Just not let them leave.
Oh my gosh, that'll be some Mad Max shit so fast.
We'll grant you safe passage through the wasteland. That's what we'll do. Like Lord Humongous.
Living off of the little crabs they find in the.
But
I don't doubt that there's a shortage of crabs on that beach.
Oh.
You don't doubt that there's no shortage of crabs? Is that the joke you meant to make?
Oh, come on, give me a break.
Louise, a real quick question about business to you. Are you guys still doing direct fulfillment during this time?
Well, so that's an interesting question. Yes, our inventory is low post Christmas, which is kind of purposeful at this moment for a variety of reasons. So a bunch of our shit is out of stock, which is kind of been nice. But now I'm debating if the virus lives on cardboard for 24 hours and on hard surfaces for 72. And, I don't think I've been exposed, but I certainly could be. And I'm the one that packs most of our stuff up and ships it. But I am debating after Chicago Music Exchange emailed yesterday and I talked to Levesque. And it's, I am debating stopping shipments. But I don't, that's a chunk of our income too. And I'm still really torn on how to handle that. Do I package things up and wear gloves? And, if everything has been sitting on the shelf for more than 72 hours, do I just make it a timing thing and let people know that? I've been thinking a lot. How about you guys?
Well, I mean, I've been debating this. I mean, we don't really do a lot of direct except for occasional special release stuff, which is what we're doing.
Right.
Which is what we're doing Friday. But I'd seen mixed messages about this because I saw some builders had said they were going to suspend it for a little while because they were worried about the Postal Service and FedEx getting overrun right now because people are doing a bunch of grocery shopping and things from Amazon and different stuff. And there's reports of the Postal Service kind of getting overworked at this time. And then on the flip side of it, I'm seeing other retailers going full on in the free shipping and price slashing and, just this time only, thing. And I'm like, I understand needing cash flow. I understand also concerns about the Postal Service. And then I also, understand concerns about, properly disinfecting product. I mean, I'm lucky my guys wipe down stuff with naphtha. If it survives naphtha, then a lot of people who have ordered direct from us are have messaged me and gone why is it when I get a pedal from you guys direct, it smells like gasoline? And I get a pedal whereas if I get a pedal from a retailer, it doesn't. And I'm like, oh, the gasoline wore off at the retailer, but yeah, there's I'm not too if it survives on cardboard for 24 hours, I'm pretty safe. I feel comfortable in that, we're doing stuff in priority mail that takes 2 to 3 days.
Right, but it is touching somebody's hands, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So even if it's not my hands it's touching, I can do so much, but then you send it out into the world and there's a dozen people from the Postal Service or FedEx or UPS or whatever that put their hands on it. And that's, I just don't know. I don't know how worried to be about things like that. And again, it depends on how long this lasts, right? So for right now, fine. I can hold off for a couple weeks. I can, if that's what we decide, we can open up, like a pre-order, the pedals are built and then I can hold them for a certain amount of time so as to not overwhelm the Postal Service and let the virus die off from us if we have it, whatever. But how long? Because if everything stays closed and the income is just gone, I guess I'm too nervous to do the full math count on how long we could go without a sale, but not as long as I would like is almost certainly the answer.
And there's the flip side of this as well. It's like I'm reminded, your customers must remind you of this too, that what we do sometimes can seem inconsequential to us. Like we're not saving whales, right?
Right.
But it brings people joy, and people have a pedal to play around with or make noise in their house or record something through an iridium or crank an amp for a hot minute. That's important to them,
right.
It's like they're like, this pedal, it gave me some relief to get to plug in for a little while or to take my mind off of this thing, to have this noisemaker, this device, this distraction, this tool, that's valuable to them. It gives them some joy and some hope. It's like, it's as frustrating as it might be that I could just imagine if I'd ordered something that I'm like, right now while I'm quarantined, if I've ordered something and I was excited to get it, and all of a sudden I got an email from them saying, we're going to hold off on sending it for a few weeks because of stuff. I'd just be like, it's like this deal just keeps getting worse and worse. I'd be Lando Calrissianing it.
Indeed. That's, it's, I feel like we're just damned if we do, damned if we don't at this point. And that's been a tough place to be for the last couple of weeks, watching this come in as in slow motion, where I feel like, I'm trying not to be all doom and gloom. But watching all my friends get their gigs canceled for the entire summer. And, my husband had a residency in a bar in our town for the summer, and our art shows are getting canceled, and it's just been, you watch as that happens in slow motion, and then trying to figure out how to manage the fallout without giving up entirely. And I honestly think there will be casualties from this. There will be venues that don't come back. There will be, and I don't know if how much it'll happen in the pedal business, but because most of the smaller folks have day jobs too, quite honestly. So maybe there won't be, mass casualties, but I have a hard time believing there won't be any.
Yeah. There are venues already here that say they're not going to reopen. There's this place like Slim's Last Chance in Georgetown and Seattle. It's not coming back.
I found out from our screen printers. I've always viewed our screen printers as like one of the safe for T-shirts and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I viewed them as almost one of the most indefatigable, just indestructible things in the world, because I go there and it's like 4,000 square feet full of machines, and it's like a Laverne and Shirley operation, just full of just heavy machinery going all the time and people working, and the place is just a sweat lodge of people working, and they're constantly behind on orders. And I see a message from our T-shirt printer and my coworkers messaged us and like, hey, can we throw them any business? Was there a plan to do a T-shirt for the new pedal? I'm like, there wasn't, but I guess there will be now. Because all of a sudden, all of their festival shirts got canceled. All of their summer event stuff T-shirts got canceled, and all the bands that were touring who used to get shirts from them canceled. And it's literally just like, poof, like in a moment, this multi-million-dollar business that was kind of cruising is all of a sudden like, hey, can someone throw us some work?
Right.
And,
well, I know the small screen printer in our town, Ambient Inks, is the one that the Eau Claire's Festival and Bon Iver uses. And Eau Claire's just announced that they were supposed to have their 5th year this summer downtown, and they just canceled that, which means a huge,
not even postponed,
just canceled from what I heard now. Maybe they'll change their minds at some point and reschedule for the fall. But and that's a point that we haven't really talked about. The fallout from this for venues is going to be really long, because now instead of booking new tours in the fall and winter, it's simply just going to be rescheduled tours. So this is going to mean a lot for a long time. For a lot of those musicians that were banking on a summer tour and then a winter tour also, there might not be those opportunities, especially if venues close. And that just scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I wonder, with all of the festivals that are rescheduling, Bonnaroo, Treefort, Coachella, like now there's going to be a lot more festivals happening in a much more condensed amount of time. And for some of them, like the Bonnaroos and the Coachellas, they fly in teams from all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just local stuff. So like, how is it going to impact the festival's abilities, not just to get talent, but to get their vendor coordinators, to get vendors in general, to get security staff, and then to get an audience of people that maybe you did it like 2 festivals a summer, and now if they're 2 weeks apart, you can't go to both. And
right, especially if your income is right. If your income has been impacted, which, a huge percentage of us are going to feel something to greater or lesser degrees. I don't think you can overstate how big of a deal this is going to be for, a minimum of 18 months.
Yeah.
That's a pretty small minimum too. I mean,
not
that I'm any sort of expert, but I'll pull I'm not an expert on shipping and supply chain management, but I don't know. I think one of the things that I'm worried about looking long term from a business perspective is, in terms of supply chain management, I think everybody's going to start rethinking how globally they want to distribute their supply chain, and how many different areas of the world they need the businesses are going to choose to rely on, knowing that this probably won't be the first time we've got an epidemic in our lifetime.
The last time.
Right. I mean, this isn't going to be the last time, I don't think. I mean, if we believe half of what Bill Gates is saying, which it sounds like we might have done well to listen to him 5 years ago. I mean, what is that going to mean for long-term supply chain management? Are we still going to continue to be pulling from a lot of the same part sources from Southeast Asia, and what is that going to look like long-term? And I don't think we know, but I think it's going to be. I think 18 months is really optimistic in terms of what it's going to look like for the global economy to kind of reset.
Oh, for sure. Well, and one of the really difficult things is there isn't a replacement for a lot of those factories, especially in Asia. They simply don't exist in the numbers that we would need them to here.
Right.
And so that's a multi-year process of getting them up and running. And I know I use this word loosely, our president believes that the tariffs are going to kickstart industry here, but we simply haven't seen that. It's not like in that year since they've been announced, or however long it's been, we've gotten any indication that, our parts manufacturers are going to relocate or build fresh in the United States. And even if they did, the cost of doing so, the environmental impact, it's just enormous.
It was nonsense the whole time.
Of course it was. Yeah. He's an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, think about like the example. I'm in complete agreement with you on this, Louise. Like, here's how I've walked people through this. We've sourced from Mauser, right?
Right,
all
same.
of us have sourced from Mauser. Okay, Mauser is owned by Berkshire Hathaway, which is Warren Buffett. Okay, super wealthy guy. If Mauser doesn't see any incentive to building a semiconductor factory here in the States, like
nobody's going to.
Nobody's going to.
Nobody's
the
going to
man
do
in the
it.
world with all the time in the world and all the ability to hit all the break evens whenever he wants, who owns the distribution chain, who could be a vertically integrated chain from
as easy as it gets,
like a snap, is not building that factory. Who will? Like, there was never going to be it. It was always, are the cats here again? Hey, oh, hi, Kitty. Like, it was.
Well, and it's so frustrating because we see this, like, I would love to source more locally. And I think that the fallout is that is going to be part of the fallout. Like, shrinking down your supply chain and your distribution methods. That's certainly something that we've considered doing for a long time. Increase profit margins. There's all kinds of reasons to do that.
Yeah.
And all of that might be positive, but the reality is that it's hard to know if it's even possible. Like, I'm not sure we could shrink down far enough to get what we need. I certainly, like, my town doesn't have anyone that could, I mean, I can't source enclosures, get them drilled, powder coated, and printed easily here. There's no one-stop shop for that.
No.
So that
we tried
has
it,
to
and
be...
we had a 20% fail rate when we tried it here.
Yeah, exactly.
20%. I mean, literally with like boxes misprinted, mispainted, scratched up, just like I remember 18 out of, I think it was one package I had was 18 out of 82 were bad. And I just went, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is just incredible. And these guys would just say, like, misdrilled where like jacks and potentiometers couldn't fit in anymore. Like, just, and I would look at these guys and I'd be like, this is garbage work. And they'd be like, what's your problem, man? It's rock and roll. And I'm like,
yeah, they just shrug and say whatever.
Yeah. And I'm just like, oh my God, just like, this is insane, So there aren't the facilities that are, when you look at that, trying to compete against what like Behringer does with Music City, where it's like
the entire city is owned by them.
Yeah, where basically it's like this city has been constructed to consistently drill enclosures correctly. Like, these buildings have been done. This city has been instructed to correctly make gig bags correctly for years, over and over and over again. And then you're like,
we don't have that.
Yeah, you're walking a guy with a CNC machine, and you're explaining, no, really, my tolerances are this. Like, you can't.
The PCB does not move. I cannot wiggle the pots around. I cannot, like, it just doesn't fit.
Yeah.
LEDs have to be X, like that hole has to be X, and it has to be in the right spot. We've had the same conversation. And sometimes, sometimes I care a little bit less. When we did a hand screen printed run of the Nick Reinhardt Terramellos Super Sodomizer years back. Those were hand printed by a guy that we've known for 20 years. And when he had some thumbprints on the side, I thought, well, that gives it some character. This one, it's okay. And I'm maybe less fussy than others, whatever. But I can't have my entire run of grazers have thumbprints on it, and I can't have, like, there's no wiggle room on those tolerances. And I'm not going to sit and fight my PCB and enclosure for 15 minutes every time I want to drop one in. Like, I don't have the time, and I sure as heck don't have the patience for that. So, it's,
especially once you've gotten used to when things are drilled and done correctly.
Right? You get spoiled.
You get spoiled, and you're like, you build a PCB and you have an enclosure and you just jam the things together, and you're like, oh, that's satisfying,
Right. Right.
Like,
while you're watching your TV on Hulu or whatever, and everybody's got their headphones on and everybody's good. It doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work like that when you have somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. And I think that's, it used to be your small businesses locally were experts in whatever they were doing, right? So you had your grocer, and you had a shoemaker, and you had a tailor, and whatever. We don't have that concentrated in each city anymore. And I think that's kind of what Andrew brought up. That's scary, right? We don't have experts locally anymore. And I've thought the same thing. Like, what are we going to do? Are we going to shrink it down? And I just wonder if our global economy isn't just way past that as a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, either we're way past that as a possibility, or we have no choice but to go through the growing pains of shifting the entirety of the global economy. And I think part of what that's, if I may put on my prophetic hat and make some predictions pull those predictions out of thin air, I think we're going to be looking at not only just that shift, but while we're at it, that means we're going to have to shift what it looks like to do. It's a perfect time to rethink what manufacturing looks like. And I think automation and robotic engineering that's going to start playing. If we're going to start building these kinds of factories here locally on this side of the planet, I think it's going to involve a lot more automation, a lot less hands-on work. And I think, say what you want about universal basic income, but Andrew Yang's right about the future of automation. I think this just fast forwards all of that. I think we're going to see, if I had to take a gander, I think we're going to see whatever we're able to shift to this side of the planet in terms of manufacturing and supply chain management. It's going to be way, way, way more automated than anything we've seen and we've been reliant on on the other side of the planet, because they've just got the manpower, the ability to maintain that cost-effective labor, and right, wrong, or indifferent, we've just become reliant on that.
Yeah. And it's not cost-effective. They're being screwed, right? So, it is cost effective because they're not being paid adequately, but, right. And that's something I'm
completely with you on that.
Yeah. We just have to manage that expectation, even as our productivity as a nation and globally has increased like it has. We're just seeing these, jobs that just don't need to be there. And, the productivity is there. We don't need to make up middle management jobs anymore. We should just take some piece from the fact that we have high productivity and automation and allow people, talk about a boon for artists and musicians. If there was a universal basic income, think about the number of people who would write that book or that screenplay or paint that next picture. I mean, that's what happened during the Renaissance. Was there were people paying artists to create, and that's how everything happened. Any favorite classic piece of music? I mean, there's so much that happened through benefactors. And if we don't see that happen again, I mean, there won't be another Renaissance, so to speak.
No, and record labels used to do that kind of thing, and publishing companies used to. So you would sign a deal with a publishing company; they believed in your songs, and then they would basically give you an amount of money to live off of. So all you had to do is focus on your music. That's right. Harder to get. It's impossible to get. Record labels used to kind of be the same way, and now it's just kind of about, like, if you're not coming into the steel fully formed, there's just no room for you. There would be no Bruce Springsteen today because his first 2 or 3 albums bombed.
Yep.
Well, right. And I think about, locally, Justin Vernon and Bon Iver, we went to high school with them. I watched him be supported by our community and the local venues and the battle of the bands in high school. And he was allowed to suck. He was allowed, I mean, he's always been a great musician, but he wasn't always a great songwriter, right? Like that takes years and years and years to form. And that guy was able to do that. He was able to create a life for himself with support from his family and his friends. And he worked really hard at it. And that's, what you get at the end of that when you support artists and allow them to be who they need to be at any given moment, you get some greats. And we're not seeing much of that currently. And that's really hard to watch.
Philippe, you're going to say something about automation?
The automation. Yeah. So I've been seeing this. I'm friends with a guy who runs a company that makes kind of a medical supply thing. And the automation thing is fascinating to me because he said 10 years ago or 12 years ago, he started the company and eventually had 25 American employees. And then he moved to China and he had 75 Chinese employees. And then he was moving his production back to the US, and the Chamber of Commerce wanted to have a big ribbon cutting because he's opening a giant facility to produce his stuff. And he felt awkward about it because he was going to have 5 American employees now because of how automated it was. And
sure.
I thought that was fascinating because I saw this again in my payroll company. There was a big announcement from South Carolina Department of Commerce about 1 million square foot facility, 1 million square feet of manufacturing, and it was going to have 11 employees.
Jeez.
11. And a part of me is just thinking to myself, I went to business school, and so long as the only things a business has to account for in its production costs are what it costs to make something, and so long as they don't have to account in any way for the impact upon society, whether it's how much it costs to throw your junk away, right? Or how few people get employed, or how many people it displaces, or whatever. So long as all you have to do is that Milton Friedman, like, hey, I'm playing within the rules of the game, and my job is to maximize profit and give zero about anything but myself and my company, you're going to see this continue until we find some way to think about the actual costs of making this junk. Because I saw someone complaining about this. It reminded me, I saw someone complaining like, oh my God, how come I can't use a plastic bag? How come I have to pay for a plastic bag when I'm buying plastic jugs of laundry detergent and plastic jugs of milk and plastic jugs of ice cream and plastic jugs of whatever? But the problem is the plastic bag, and they're making fun of a plastic rule, a plastic bag rule for a municipality. And the reason the plastic bag is the rule in the municipality is that's all the local government can control. They can't make Unilever stop putting giant jugs of soap, in plastic. But we as taxpayers have to throw away these giant jugs of plastic. And until a large manufacturer or an automator has to account for the public cost of their actions, then we're going to continue to see this. And I think we're going to see the automation thing come into play. And I would love to see that if that actually does displace, like some of the stuff Yang has talked about and others, that if it does displace work, if it's productivity that displaces an amount of work that would have been done otherwise, we find some way that those people then have to contribute back into the public till for public works, for public goods and services. And that can be among the things that contribute to culture and artists and things like this. Because I'm on the board of a local organization that oversees HTAX money that gets distributed to artists and art organizations and public arts endeavors. And it has a massive impact to be able to do this thing. And you tried to describe it, and the initial business response thing is, oh, well, what's the ROI on this? I'm like, the ROI on this is that this neighborhood became beautified.
Yeah.
That's the ROI.
Right. There's some joy in the world. That should be the goal sometimes.
Yeah.
And it, like Philippe said earlier, it is hard to remember that we are contributing to the arts world in a really concrete way. When you build something that sparks some amount of creativity, it's easy to be a little bit jaded about it and say, well, we're just soldering, resistors on, and what we do isn't as important as whatever. But we shouldn't, we should be looking at just the pure joy of some situations as enough. Like that's what we're contributing. Yeah. That's, when somebody paints something, there's no hard and fast rule about what that contributes. If they make $1,000 on that piece of art, that's not the only good that it's bringing into the world. Right. And I think that's really hard for Americans, especially, to grasp. I have a cousin.
Not everybody buying a fishing pole is a professional fisherman.
Right.
Can you imagine?
I'm not professional, but like, I really love going trout fishing. It's really soothing. It's beautiful. I can't wait for that to happen. And I'm not contributing to any goddamn economy when I go up to my dad's and fish for a couple hours in the morning.
Yeah. The most you're contributing might be a license, like here's my trout fishing license,
Right. $28 a year.
It's made me really rethink bedroom players, because this experience, the quarantine and COVID, I think has made everybody a bedroom player. But I started rethinking being a bedroom player once I had kids, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not gigging, 10 times a month. I'm not doing this stuff anymore. What's going to happen? And I'm like, wait a second. Like, my mother-in-law paints like 30 paintings a year, Like, she loves painting. Lots of people love just fishing, and they're not competing in the Bass Pro Shops Invitational or whatever.
Right.
Lots of people
you don't have to monetize every hobby. You don't have to monetize every hobby.
Yeah, I look at why, all of my in-laws golf. Like, are they expected to make money golfing? No, they golf. Like, why are we totally fine with a bunch of people being hobbyist golfers, but we want to denigrate hobbyist guitar players? Like, no.
And not just guitar players. It's everything that is artistic. Every writer, every painter, every crafter. Like, I don't have an Etsy shop for my embroidery, but I do it. I have all kinds of hobbies that I haven't monetized and have no interest in monetizing. And it's really rubbed me the wrong way. As, talk about the gig economy. Everybody that I know that is a musician is broke and frustrated, and trying to figure out how to make it in the world prior to any plague coming through. And now we're expected, we were blamed for not gigging enough, not monetizing, not website and Instagram and all this stuff, that really does suck the joy out of it. Like,
it's that Vaynerchuk hustle talk,
Right. Oh, and it's just awful. Like, I don't want to hustle when I'm embroidering, watching TV at night, That's not why I'm doing that.
What's your hustle?
Right. I don't want to create an Etsy shop for the flower dish rag that I made a couple months ago, right? I made it. I think, like, well, that looks pretty good. And I throw it in my laundry and
that trout that you caught, Louise, you could have sold that trout. You could have sold that trout. You could have air dried that trout out in a kiln and nailed it to some wood and made someone's house beautiful if you had hustled.
Instead I brought it home and my dad was like, oh, thank goodness you caught something. And we ate the shit out of that and it was delicious. That's, and so just like rethinking the process of creating joy without monetizing it is something that we really all have to do. And that's what, like, rethinking universal basic income and all these other supposedly impossible hippy dippy ideas, like, that's if you want better music, better art, better painting, a better culture in your town, that's how you get it. Allowing people to create without an expectation of hustle behind it at all times. And I guess one of the things that's so difficult about the COVID-19 is that having to have these conversations in a really awful situation. And so I'm very grateful that people are having them. We're talking about what it would look like if our government just took care of healthcare for people, like what it's going to take if we have an economic downturn, when we have an economic downturn from this, mortgage companies being forced to be lenient, and student loan forgiveness, and all of the things that we're discussing now. Whether or not any of them happen, I certainly don't know. But if they don't, we're going to see Great Depression levels. So I'm hoping that something gives in the next week or two. And it's both a blessing and a curse that this is how those conversations are coming about.
It's definitely a pressure cooker environment, and I don't think this is the environment any of us would have wanted to choose for this. But I mean, all of that said, when life gives you lemons, I mean, this is a hell of a lemon. But I mean, are we just going to sit here and stare at the lemon and go, well, I'm stuck inside for the next few months and this sucks? Or like, I really love how this conversation is turning into, there is so much joy and there's so much hope. And I mean,
right alongside the fear, like, and that's what's it's so incredible to watch this come about and have these conversations about joy. And, every musician I know is live streaming, and, Data Choir has had all this beautiful stuff go up with Kathy and Summer, who are just angels. And so I'm enjoying all of that so much while being, flippin' terrified.
Yep.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think anyone who says that they're not terrified right now is either one, incredibly good at compartmentalizing, which I'm admittedly jealous of because I'm finding my limits of my ability to compartmentalize. I'm usually pretty good at it, and it's just that ability's out the window at this point. Everything's just run over into everything for me. Or two, you're not taking this seriously when you should be, and no one has an excuse at this point. I mean, really,
I have to say, or three, I'm medicated.
Yeah, give me those good drugs.
Oh yeah, no, I had
got the citrulline.
I'm a terrible Christian. I gave up alcohol for Lent, and I gave up on that a couple days ago at this point.
I definitely opened a bottle of whiskey last night. Absolutely.
I know it's bad when my husband is asking me to make him cocktails.
Yeah. Whiskey and ginger beer is my go-to, and that nice. Definitely had one last night.
Yeah, and I'm not recommending self-medicating to cover up for things by no means. I think there's
there's a relief valve that needs to happen every once in a while, and that's a really tough place to be. I hadn't had anything to drink in a week or a week and a half either, which is unusual for me. I'm from Wisconsin after all. And I had one last night and I was like, oh Jesus, this feels much better. And then I thought, well, that's not a good sign.
Right. Self-care is going to be incredibly important. I think that we could do an entire episode of what self-care is going to look like in this new age of being quarantined at home for however long this is going to be. But no,
make art without pressure to monetize it. That's one thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of what I'm leading up to saying is there's absolutely nothing wrong with being scared right now. I think a lot of people are trying that I'm in contact with are trying to do the best of like, oh, I'll be all right. And these are kind of like these are uncertain times, but I mean, it is what it is. And like, let's all be honest with ourselves. We're all like kind of freaked out, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think if you're not freaked out, I don't even know what to say to that. Like it feels terrifying. In my whole 37 years, I've never experienced anything like this, and my kids are old enough to kind of know what's going on. And even trying to explain that to my 16-year-old is like, well, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know if you're going to be able to take your AP exams. I don't know if you're going to be able to finish your junior year in high school. So it's a weird one.
It's absolutely weird.
I saw some investor notes that got shared to me by a certain large, impressive force in our economy. And that stuff was the rosiest nonsense I have ever seen in my life. I mean, it was rosier than a softcore porno. I mean, it is like it was just full of it, and like their projection was the S&P down by like 10% and 2% overall GDP growth in the world.
What?
And I was like, you guys are higher than the idiots at GM who asked for bailout money in 2008 and said they predicted they could sell 20,000 Hummers in a year when they'd never sold 10,000 Hummers in a year when Hummer was at its peak. And so it was just, I think what's important to take away that I think you guys are saying, and I think I think we're all echoing, is that this is going to have real impacts on real people's lives and real small businesses and real Main Street in a way that is incredibly significant. And I think a lot of people from the top have this kind of rosy view that everything's just going to work out. There'll be this creative destruction, and if we all lose our jobs, don't worry, we'll all be able to sell Etsy embroidery and become entrepreneurs. And that's a load of, God, these cats are coming here again. This is so much. But that I think it's important that we all try to work together as best as we can. And I think we have to work together from the ground up, because from the top down, it ain't coming.
It ain't coming.
It ain't coming. And I think if we all work together as best as we can from the ground up, I think we can make it through. But it ain't coming from the top down. No way. Yeah.
Yeah. My general distrust of establishments at this point is feeling pretty good right now.
Right? The teenage me, the punk rocker with anarchist stickers all over, is a little bit more vindicated than she would have liked to been.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's bad when Trump, who's known for doubling down on everything he says and refuses to acknowledge he's wrong, managed to change his mind in 3 weeks on whether or not this was serious and is now considering whatever he's considering. I think that's for anybody on the anybody in the political spectrum, we can all acknowledge that he's a stubborn son of a bitch, and he gave up. So
you're so nice. That was a nice way to put that.
That's about as nice as I get on. This is me very filtered on my political views.
I thought you were going to be Andrew Unfiltered in 2020. What happened to that?
I'm trying to. I said I was going to be Andrew Unfiltered in 2020. I think if I go completely unfiltered, I'm going to be completely unhinged, and that's not going to do me any good or anybody else any good. So I'm trying to find the balance of honesty, but not like completely losing my sense of what's going on. Losing my there's only so much I'm willing to let go at this point.
Yeah.
But,
indeed.
Well, I think it's been quite illuminating and fun and informative chat.
Great
Thank
chat.
you again, Louise and Philippe.
My pleasure.
Everybody listening, check out Dwarfcraft Devices. Check out Caroline Petals.
Caroline Corporation.
The Caroline Corporation.
Caroline Guitar Company, Caroline Corporation. Yep.
Keep an eye out for
one of the few establishments I have trust in right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Follow them on social. You can find links to them in the show notes. Until next time, thanks for listening. Thanks for understanding. I'm Emily.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Louise.
I'm Philippe.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.